A year has passed since my divorce, and throughout this time, I've faced numerous challenges that have reshaped my life in ways I never anticipated. I'm a 38-year-old man, and my ex-wife, a 37-year-old woman, and I share two wonderful children, a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old. Initially, our custody arrangement was such that the kids spent half of each month with me. However, due to my significantly higher income compared to hers, I was obligated to provide both alimony and child support to ensure their well-being while they were with her. Our marriage unraveled in a tumultuous manner, marked by constant arguments and escalating tensions over the last few years. The final straw came during a particularly intense fight when my wife erupted in anger, expressing deep regret over our marriage and telling me she wished she had never tied the knot with me. Heartbroken and realizing that reconciliation was impossible, I made the difficult decision to leave her and file for divorce. The separation was acrimonious, leaving us with strained relations that persisted long after the divorce was finalized. 6 months into our separation, I discovered through a mutual friend that my ex-wife had already started a new relationship. The news was disheartening. She seemed to move on much quicker than I had anticipated. Despite feeling hurt, I chose not to confront her about it. Instead, I focused solely on maintaining a cordial relationship centered around our children, believing that it was in their best interest to minimize conflict. For the next 6 months, our interactions were limited to discussions about the kids, and I convinced myself that her ability to move forward indicated her strength as a mother. However, recent events have dramatically altered my perception of her character. Just 10 days ago, while I was away on a business trip scheduled to last 3 days, an incident occurred that shook me to my core. Under normal circumstances, my ex-wife was responsible for dropping the children off at my home on the second day of my trip, after which I would take over their care. I had informed her about the trip and requested if she could extend her caregiving by those additional 3 days. She agreed without hesitation, and I have the screenshots of our conversation to confirm her consent. Confident in her reliability, I proceeded with my work commitments, trusting that our children were in good hands. However, on the second evening of my trip, I received a distressed call from my son. He was confused and worried because their mother had supposedly dropped them off at my place, yet no one was answering the door despite their attempts over a 15-minute period. They were left standing outside in the biting cold, unable to enter our new home. Panicked and concerned for their safety, I instructed them to seek temporary refuge at our neighbor's house while I attempted to resolve the situation, assuming it was merely a misunderstanding on my ex-wife's part. To my dismay, I learned that our neighbors were also out of town, leaving our street almost deserted. We had recently relocated to a new neighborhood where most houses were still unoccupied, except for the residence directly opposite ours, which was home to an elderly couple who were not present at the time. The emptiness of the area only heightened my anxiety as I realized there was nowhere nearby for my children to stay. With my heart racing, I advised my son to hold on for a moment while I reached out to his mother. I called my ex-wife, urging her to immediately come and take the children back home to prevent them from enduring the harsh weather conditions. To my utter shock and disbelief, instead of apologizing for the oversight, she coldly informed me that the responsibility now lay solely with me since it was technically my turn to have the children. I was at a loss for words, desperately trying to reason with her for the sake of our children's well-being. Her response was abrupt and dismissive. She ended the call without any consideration. Frantically, I sent her a text message pleading for her to return and retrieve the kids, but her reply was even more unsettling. She confessed that she was running late for a date with her boyfriend and that they were celebrating their 8-month anniversary. By that time, over 20 minutes had elapsed since my initial call, and my children had been waiting outside in the freezing weather for nearly 35 minutes with no other alternatives. With no other options left, I had to contact Child Protective Services, CPS, to explain the dire situation. They responded swiftly, arriving at our home within minutes to take custody of my children. CPS then assumed responsibility for transporting my kids to my parents' residence, which is located a short distance out of town. Given their young ages, the children were incapable of navigating public transportation or finding their way independently. Tragically, my in-laws had passed away before my ex-wife and I were even married, and I had no other relatives in the city who could look after them in my absence. Consequently, my parents' home was the safest and most reliable place for my children to stay until my return. In addition to ensuring my children's immediate safety, I took the grave step of reporting my ex-wife for neglecting our children and deliberately putting them in harm's way. When the authorities arrived, they found my children huddled on the front steps of my house, using my younger son's blanket to fend off the cold. The sight of them in such distress was heartbreaking, but I felt a profound sense of relief once CPS had secured their safety by taking them to my parents' home. Within hours of my report, my ex-wife was taken into custody on charges of negligence, solidifying my belief that she had endangered our children intentionally. That night, exhausted yet feeling a sense of justice, I went to bed knowing that my children were safe and that my ex-wife would now face the consequences of her actions. Upon receiving confirmation that my children were unharmed and under my parents' care, I promptly contacted my attorney to initiate legal proceedings for full custody. Achieving full custody would not only end the financial strain of alimony and child support but also ensure that my children remained in a stable and loving environment. I was determined to hold her accountable and teach her a lesson for her irresponsible behavior. In the ensuing days, communication between us ceased entirely. I became aware that she had been charged with a misdemeanor, but I remained focused on the legal battle ahead. Upon returning home from my trip, my first priority was to reunite with my children. We had an in-depth conversation about the recent events, during which I expressed my remorse for not being physically present and reassured them that such a situation would never recur. I informed them of my plans to seek full custody, emphasizing that their well-being was my utmost priority. My eldest child appeared visibly relieved and happy at the prospect of living with me consistently. This reaction was initially reassuring, as I had always believed my ex-wife was a capable and caring mother. Despite the challenges in our marriage, she had shown dedication to our children's needs, and I had no prior reason to doubt her parenting. However, when I inquired about his sudden happiness, my son hesitated before revealing unsettling truths. He disclosed that his mother had prohibited him and his brother from discussing their experiences with me, leading to a hidden struggle they had been enduring. He explained that life at her home was extremely restrictive. She had become excessively strict, abruptly banning any candy or junk food for half of the month, forcing the boys to consume bland, repetitive meals like tasteless porridge and oatmeal for both lunch and dinner. Only on weekends were they allowed a slight variation in their diet, which still consisted of unappetizing options like toast with dip. My ex-wife justified these dietary restrictions by claiming they were for the children's health, but I couldn't comprehend how eliminating essential food groups like meat and vegetables for such extended periods could benefit them. Moreover, I couldn't understand why she completely forbade them from enjoying treats like candy, which, in moderation, could have been harmless and even beneficial for their relationship with food. Additionally, my sons revealed that their social lives were severely limited under her care. They were only permitted to attend school and return directly home, with no opportunities to invite friends over or participate in sleepovers. This isolation extended to their recreational activities, as they were not allowed to purchase toys, books, clothes, or even simple items like chicken nuggets when shopping. During grocery trips, she would only buy necessities, leaving the boys standing aside in silence to avoid any confrontation, as she would react with anger if they spoke up. The most troubling revelation was that their mother had expressly forbidden them from discussing these hardships with me, leaving me oblivious to their suffering. Puzzled and concerned, I decided to confront her directly to understand why she was imposing such harsh conditions on our children. When I called her to address these issues, she began by berating me for involving the authorities and reporting her neglect. Ignoring her attempts to deflect blame, I pressed her for explanations regarding our children's complaints. Her responses were contradictory and unconvincing, as I was providing her with sufficient child support and alimony to cover their needs, yet the children were expressing a lack of basic necessities and emotional well-being. She claimed financial hardship, stating that she was between jobs and couldn't afford to spend the child support money as intended. This was perplexing, given that I was also providing alimony to help maintain her standard of living. With a stable income, the combined financial support should have been more than adequate to ensure our children's comfort and happiness. Our conversation escalated until she angrily dismissed the issue, asserting that my concerns were none of my business and abruptly ended the call. Realizing that she had been deceitful, my lawyer and I decided to take legal action beyond just seeking full custody. We filed additional charges for child abuse and neglect, given the clear evidence of her mistreatment and endangerment of our children. This legal move added to her existing misdemeanor charges, further complicating her situation. A week and a half later, she was formally served with the lawsuit. On the day of the service, she reached out to me, feigning remorse and shedding what I could only describe as insincere tears. Her sudden attempt at reconciliation seemed manipulative, as it coincided with the imminent loss of custody of our children. I suspected her motives were not driven by a genuine concern for the children, but by a desire to secure continued child support payments. During our conversation, I confronted her about creating this untenable situation and expressed my loss of trust in her ability to care for our children. In response, she attempted to downplay the seriousness of the lawsuit, suggesting it was petty and that she was already overwhelmed with the ongoing legal battles. She argued that my actions were intentionally designed to harm her, claiming that while she had moved on with her life, I had not. I found her assertions absurd and disconnected from reality, choosing to end the call rather than engage in futile arguments. From that point forward, I ceased all communication with her, redirecting my focus to my work and the well-being of my children. I was resolute in my decision that my children would no longer live with their mother under any circumstances, and I was determined to discontinue the child support payments. To ensure their safety and care during my working hours, I began searching for reliable babysitters. For the time being, my mother moved in with us to help manage the children's needs while I was at work. Just yesterday, while I was at my job, my mother called me in a state of urgency, informing me that my ex-wife was at our doorstep, refusing to leave without speaking to me. Caught in the middle of a workday with an important meeting, I couldn't immediately respond. Instead, I instructed my mother to connect them over the phone. On the call, I warned her that if she continued her erratic and disruptive behavior, I would have no choice but to seek a restraining order against her, further escalating her legal troubles. She dismissed my warnings, lamenting how I was intentionally ruining her life and pleading for compassion. She implored me to withdraw the lawsuit, citing the immense mental strain she was experiencing due to the pending charges in both the custody and child protection cases. I had already informed my employers about the necessity of taking regular breaks to attend court proceedings, and they were understanding as long as my work performance remained unaffected. However, my ex-wife argued that her financial instability, being between jobs, prevented her from affording legal representation and attending court sessions, a predicament she insisted was beyond her control. I reminded her that her financial struggles were irrelevant to my concerns, as the funds I provided were meant exclusively for our children's welfare, not her personal use. Admittedly, my response was fueled by frustration over her consistent mistreatment of me and our children since the divorce. Every time she received alimony and child support payments, she squandered them instead of providing a nurturing environment for our kids. Despite my financial contributions, she deprived our children of a healthy and supportive home, instilling fear and silencing them from sharing their hardships with me. I firmly believe that pursuing full custody and legal action was justified given her selfishness, dishonesty, and failure as a mother. My harsh demeanor towards her was a direct consequence of her relentless disregard for our children's needs, but she refused to acknowledge her wrongdoing. Instead, she infantilized herself, accusing me of being terrible and claiming that losing custody was devastating enough without the added burden of the lawsuit. Her inability to accept responsibility and her continued manipulation only reinforced my resolve to protect my children at all costs. Despite lingering feelings of guilt, I reminded myself that my actions were driven by the necessity to ensure a safe and loving environment for my children. The constant alimony and child support payments, coupled with her negligence, made it clear that her priorities were misplaced. She had consistently chosen personal indulgence over our children's well-being, fostering an environment of deprivation and fear. Her attempts to paint me as the villain in this narrative were baseless, as I had always strived to provide for and protect our children to the best of my ability. Update 1 ***. Hello everyone. It's been 2 days since I shared my story here, and I wanted to provide an update on how things have progressed. After much reflection and support from all of you, as well as encouragement from my parents, I've come to a firm realization: there's absolutely no reason for me to feel guilty about the decisions I've made. Your words of support and the guidance from my family have reaffirmed that I was doing the right thing by prioritizing my children's safety and well-being. Conversations with my parents have also confirmed my suspicions that the child support funds I provided were not being used appropriately. It became evident that my ex-wife was diverting those funds for her personal expenses rather than investing them in our children's needs. Due to the nature of our separation, we had distanced ourselves from mutual friends, making it challenging to gauge her true financial situation. However, after discussing my concerns here and consulting with my parents, I reached out to a few close friends to gather more insight into her actual financial status. A few hours after posting, my children informed me that while my ex-wife was present at home during weekdays, she spent weekends out for extended periods, often leaving them in the care of neighbors or relatives. Some nights, she would arrange for a relative to babysit, only returning in the early morning hours. This pattern suggested a deliberate effort to keep their hardships hidden from me, explaining why my children had been unusually quiet about their experiences. Recognizing that something was amiss, I decided to set aside my moral reservations and investigate further. Previously, I had refrained from monitoring her social media out of respect for her privacy post-divorce. However, realizing the gravity of the situation, I began discreetly checking her online presence through a friend's account. To my astonishment, her social media profiles were filled with images of her enjoying lavish parties at nightclubs, indulging in beach vacations, and sharing romantic getaways with her boyfriend at upscale hotels. Her online persona resembled that of a social media influencer, starkly contrasting the financial struggles she had previously confided in me. This discrepancy was both shocking and enlightening. My friends revealed that they hadn't mentioned her extravagant lifestyle earlier because they didn't want to intrude or seemed it was not their place to comment. I understood their hesitation, as I had distanced myself from many of my old friends after the divorce. Our relationship dated back to our college days, and maintaining connections had become challenging due to the emotional baggage associated with her. Nevertheless, reconnecting with my friends provided me with a clearer picture of the reality behind her facade. It became undeniable that her claims of financial hardship were fabricated. She had been extracting more money from me under false pretenses, prioritizing her personal desires over our children's needs. Her willingness to deny our children nutritious food and subject them to a monotonous and unappealing diet was reprehensible. Instead of investing in their well-being, she opted to economize at their expense, demonstrating a level of miserliness that was both shocking and unacceptable. Given these revelations, any lingering feelings of guilt dissipated entirely. She had consistently chosen her own comforts and pleasures over the health and happiness of our children, making it clear that she was a terrible influence and an unfit mother. Her behavior justified every harsh word and legal action I had taken against her, as she deserved the consequences of her neglect and deceit. Update 2 ***. Greetings everyone. I wanted to express my gratitude for all the comments and updates you've provided. Your support has been invaluable during this challenging time. My ex-wife and I are currently embroiled in ongoing legal battles, and we have a second court hearing scheduled for the day after tomorrow. In a swift turn of events, she decided to abandon the custody fight, declaring her willingness to relinquish her parental rights. Her reasoning was straightforward: she couldn't afford to hire a lawyer for all 3 cases we were involved in. As a result, full custody of our children has been granted to me, bringing a significant sense of relief and security. This development means that the constant worry about my children's future and well-being has finally subsided, allowing me to breathe easier knowing they are now under my sole care. Regarding the lawsuit, the proceedings have been overwhelmingly in my favor so far, and I anticipate this trend to continue. Today, her boyfriend made the grave mistake of reaching out to me. Believing he could sway me with a fabricated sob story, he instead only served to exacerbate my frustration. His attempt to gain sympathy was transparent and only reinforced my belief that my ex-wife had consistently placed her short-lived relationship above the enduring needs of our children, a stance I found utterly unacceptable. Fortunately, I had the foresight to record the conversation, anticipating potential threats or manipulative tactics. During the call, he attempted to convince me to halt the legal proceedings by portraying her as a hardworking freelancer who was diligently supporting herself, our children, and him. I countered his arguments by pointing out the stark contrast between her alleged financial struggles and her actual lifestyle choices, such as frequent partying and extravagant spending on vacations with her boyfriend. He failed to provide any substantial evidence to support her claims of financial hardship, instead insisting that her image was a mere facade masking her true financial difficulties. He even admitted that she had been funding his master's tuition out of her savings, further highlighting the misuse of the funds meant for our children. Realizing that his explanations were inadequate and only served to confirm my suspicions about her misuse of funds, I ended the call and blocked him from further communication. This interaction cemented my understanding of how she had been depriving our children of a wholesome and fulfilling life, despite my consistent financial support. She now faces the consequences of her actions in court, and I am determined to ensure that she is held accountable for her neglectful behavior. Update 3 ***. Hello everyone. It's been a while since my last update, and I wanted to share some significant progress regarding my situation. First and foremost, I want to thank each and every one of you for your unwavering support, concern, and encouragement. Your messages have been a source of strength for me and my children during this tumultuous period. I'm pleased to report that both my ex-wife and I are actively engaged in the lawsuit, and we have a second hearing scheduled for the day after tomorrow. In a surprising yet welcome development, she quickly surrendered the custody battle, expressing her readiness to relinquish her parental rights. Her decision was influenced by her inability to afford legal representation for all 3 cases we were entangled in. Consequently, full custody of our children has been officially granted to me, providing a sense of relief and assurance that I can finally focus on creating a stable and nurturing environment for them without the constant worry of their well-being being compromised. Regarding the lawsuit, things are progressing favorably on my end. The evidence against her continues to mount, and I am confident that the court will rule in my favor. Today, her boyfriend made another ill-advised attempt to interfere by contacting me. He believed that by presenting a fabricated narrative of their struggles, he could garner sympathy and possibly influence the court's decision. However, instead of eliciting any empathy, his actions only fueled my anger and frustration. His involvement underscored the extent to which my ex-wife prioritized her relationship over our children's needs, a revelation that only solidified my resolve to protect my children from further harm. Thankfully, I had recorded his call, anticipating such manipulative behavior. During the conversation, he tried to downplay the seriousness of the lawsuit, claiming that my ex-wife had been working diligently as a freelancer since quitting her job post-divorce. He argued that she was striving to support herself, our children, and him simultaneously. I challenged his assertions by pointing out the inconsistency between her supposed financial struggles and her apparent ability to fund frequent parties and expensive vacations with her boyfriend. His inability to provide a coherent explanation for her financial discrepancies further exposed the truth behind her deceit. Moreover, he revealed that my ex-wife had been funding his master's tuition from her savings, highlighting her willingness to divert funds meant for our children's care to support him instead. This revelation confirmed my suspicions about her misuse of child support payments and her prioritization of personal indulgence over our children's well-being. Realizing that his arguments were baseless and served no purpose other than to manipulate the situation, I promptly ended the call and blocked him from further contact. As the legal proceedings continue, I am steadfast in my commitment to ensuring that my ex-wife is held accountable for her neglectful and deceitful behavior. The court case is moving in my favor, and I am optimistic about the final outcome, which will hopefully bring lasting stability and happiness to my children's lives. Update for ***. Hello everyone. It's been some time since my last update, and I wanted to share the latest developments in my ongoing legal battles and personal life. First and foremost, I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all of you for your continued support, concern, and encouragement. Your kind words and understanding have been a beacon of hope during these challenging times. I'm delighted to announce that my ex-wife has officially lost the custody case, and as a result, she now owes me a substantial amount of money. This financial burden has effectively curtailed her ability to continue her frivolous activities with her boyfriend and friends. It's perplexing to think that someone in her late 30s with 2 young children would prioritize spending money on nightlife and vacations over the fundamental needs of her family. Her irresponsible behavior was not only detrimental to our children's well-being but also a blatant misuse of the funds I had been providing for their support. With full custody secured, I can finally move forward without the constant worry of what might happen next regarding my children's living arrangements. This victory means that I no longer have to be burdened by the uncertainties of their care, allowing me to focus on providing them with the stable and loving environment they deserve. My ex-wife's actions have had severe repercussions, ensuring that she can no longer mismanage the financial support meant for our children's upbringing. It's hard to fathom the choices she made, prioritizing her personal indulgences over her parental responsibilities. Her behavior was not only reckless but also showcased a complete disregard for the health and happiness of our children. Spending money on clubs and vacations while neglecting their nutritional and emotional needs was both irresponsible and unacceptable. I am relieved to be free from her influence, knowing that I can now dedicate my time and resources to nurturing my children without interference. Once again, thank you all for your unwavering support and understanding. Your encouragement has been instrumental in helping me navigate through this difficult journey, and I am deeply grateful for each of you.